It's Andy Borkowski here, and I don't know about you, but I think Bioware really needs a win. We heard in the last month that EA might be putting the Mass Effect franchise on hold. There was that incredible expose by Kotaku that looked into some of the mismanagement that went into Andromeda. That game didn't deliver, and they need something. I think we found what that something is. Anthem, the new game from Bioware, previously known as Codename Dylan, is headed up by John Warner and the Edmonton team there, and some key writers that have worked on things like the Mass Effect games, the Dragon Age games, just tons of different titles. They are building something new, something exciting. It's not an RPG, it's a shared world action RPG. Get ready for that, shared world action RPG. And I'm here today to talk to you about why I think Anthem could be very, very good news for this company and for people like me and you. Anthem was announced during E3, first at the EA Play press conference, and then in the incredible Microsoft press conference. It was the anchor of the new announced console. This new game is going to be on the Xbox One X. Terrible name, should be called Xbox Scorpio, but I digress. The game itself is not an RPG, it's a shared world action RPG, or shared world RPG, much like Destiny, Ghost Recon, other games like it. It's set in the world of Anthem. Now, this world has a walled city where you operate as a freelancer. Seems like in this alternative universe, even we cannot get jobs. You're still a freelancer. Outside of the walled area is this primeval jungle that has different dinosaurs, something that look like robots, different creatures that you need to battle, but they're terrifying. They're massive, they're terrifying, and the landscape is entirely untenable and inhospitable. In order to navigate that, you jump into these mech suits called javelins. These mech suits are about 15 feet tall, maybe a bit taller, very, very humanoid, just literally little mech suits that you're wearing, and they can be customized to operate differently. And it looks like these are going to be the different class systems. So the Rangers are more balanced, the Colossus work as tanks, and yes, indeed, that's where I get to the most important part. This is not a single-player RPG. Jonathan Warner said that you can play the game entirely by yourself if you want to, but this is a game you can play with friends. They showed some of that combat and how you play with friends in the trailers that we saw. You and the other mechs have these different roles and kind of navigate the world, killing and finishing different objectives. In this particular gameplay trailer we saw, your objective was to save some workers. Once you navigated, like any of these games, you got off track, ended up doing a different objective, and the trailer finished with us being joined by two others to create a full squad and injecting ourselves into these emergent real-world events that apparently have story impact. So it's a very big departure from what BioWare is known for. It's coming out sometime next year. It is something you can play with your friends, and you can play it by yourself, but it is very, very different. Here's why I think this is a good thing. Right off the bat, the combat. Mass Effect Andromeda had a lot of problems. It was not a great game. I would even say it wasn't a good game, but the creators of BioWare did use the Frostbite engine to make some pretty customizable, multi-dimensional combat that was fun and easy to use. In Anthem, they're taking that premise with the same engine and adapting it big league. We are seen flying through the sky, fighting on land, and then even fighting in the water. I don't know about you, but I am down to kill some things in the water. I like it when a game development company can cherry pick the things that worked in a game that didn't and use it for another project. So I think they're already a little bit ahead in that regard, and this isn't coming out until the middle of next year, probably the end of next year. So number one, I think they already are a step ahead in the combats. Secondly, emergent storytelling is something that a lot of game development companies kind of struggle with. They can build on a character speaking lines to you. I think BioWare is really excellent at providing a narrative, a tone, or an atmosphere with little pieces of breadcrumbs in the universe. And for a shared world action RPG, That is how you'll have the most powerful moments, by believing in a narrative that's told by the world. I know more about the history of Thetis, the caste systems of Orzammar, maybe the Tower of Magi, or the different characterizations in the Mass Effect universe than I do about real history, because they made it so compelling even though it was so ancillary. I brought up Orzammar as an example in the different caste system there. That's a great example of a world informing the characters. We knew the entrenched political situations that have created this great society, and that informs the characterizations of the people themselves. Little things like that, so when you did meet a dwarf, you expected them to act a certain way, and if you were a dwarf, you could make choices that were more meaningful if you were the antithesis of that. Little things like that. We saw already in the trailer the Scar people, that there was an outlaw faction. Little moments like that in this world, discovering the mysteries from the aesthetics, feeling a certain tone from the world around you and the stories and art direction that build it up. I think Bioware has a really excellent team to do that, and I think that we'll be amazed at what they can do when a character isn't just telling you what they're thinking. And I think finally, the most important thing to remember is that Bioware is one of the best development game companies in the world at creating new things. We kind of take it for granted, that in our fantasy and sci-fi tropes, Dragon Age and Mass Effect were made by them. These are many of the same minds, many have gone elsewhere, but many of the same minds helped develop these entirely new characters in an entirely new world. I remember caring so much about the backstories of the Elcor and the Volus because of how they were depicted in Mass Effect, and this is a chance for this company to do that again. They're relying on the old tech they already have developed in Mass Effect Andromeda with the combat and pushing it. They're not going to be held up with the variable issues that have to do with making an RPG with straight exposition. And they're really great at making new things. No longer do they have to be fanboys or fangirls and pay homage to the Rexes of our hearts with Mass Effect. They can make something new and make it theirs. Finally, I really do believe that making an RPG in the 2017 climate, unless it's a specific classic RPG or a Japanese RPG, a genre sort of game, is an almost impossible task, especially a Bioware one. Because there's so many variable issues, there's so much work that needs to be outsourced to make those faces look good, the expectation of a 2017 audience, that it's almost impossible to make it perfect. Some games have, but oftentimes that's the only game a development firm does. Bioware does a lot of stuff, and EA does even more. So I'm not asking you to trust them right away, because Lord knows I certainly do not. But from what I've seen here, I think that Anthem has the potential, based on my understanding of the team in Edmonton and Bioware's infrastructure, based on my understanding of the shared world action RPG market, and based on my own gaming needs, I think this could fill a really nice niche into where gaming is going, being more social, more of an activity with friends that can still have a great story. Destiny 2 and Destiny worked really, really hard to develop a narrative that took years. Bioware can do it in a couple months because they know how to make a strong story. So I really do think you should give them a chance. I'm not an apologist here. I've been very critical of Bioware in the past, but this excited me in a way that I think the first few years of some kind of tech demos and hype content for Mass Effect Andromeda didn't. What do you think? Am I a Bioware apologist? Is this just me trying to go for views, or do you agree that this might actually be a step in the right direction? I'm Andy Borkowski for VGS.